week's top boxing news.
Hey guys, just finished doing 15 rounds of exaggerated punches because my trainer is a little crazy, so he wants to make sure I can do everything here in the gym so in the fight it's easy. I just didn't sign up for 3 minutes, 12 rounds just to sign up. I'm gonna go out there and prove that I can fight for every second of every minute for every round. So guys, you are in for an amazing treat. October 27th, make sure you get your tickets, make sure you attend, make sure you watch on the zone. I'm just hoping and praying that my opponent comes in shape because I will be.
What seems like an audition for 12 3-minute rounds in the sport of women's boxing, Amanda Serrano is grinding away, grafting, getting ready to show her stuff, show up and show out in the upcoming Danila Ramos fight ordered by the WBO. Danila of Brazil is her mandatory challenger. The virtue of 12 3-minute rounds in women's boxing, at least what's supposed to be the virtue, is that it might produce more knockouts. As I stated in a previous video, not everyone, not every woman fighter is a proponent of 12 3-minute rounds in women's boxing. Alicia Baumgartner, Sky Nicolson. Watching yesterday's fight between Jessica McCaskill and Sandy Ryan in what was one of the more scrappy rounds between the two, Alicia Baumgartner stated, "I wouldn't want to see 3 minutes of this," to which Sky Nicolson responded, "Exactly the point I was trying to make." Sky Nicolson, who we talked about here on the channel, she's been vocal that she's not a proponent of 12 3-minute rounds in a women's boxing match. Twitter user that goes by the name Mike Leonardi stated, "Sky Nicholson's not for 3-minute rounds because Amanda Serrano would knock her clean out." My thoughts. Whether or not women should be allowed to box for 12 3-minute rounds really depends on who you ask. Depends on what woman you're talking to, you're talking about. Some knockout punchers, knockout merchants like Amanda, they would prefer to have more time to seal the deal and deliver those knockouts based on marketability, that it would help sell more fights and more fighters if they had more knockouts. Because casuals, they do love knockouts, while some more cerebral boxers like a Sky Nicolson don't see the need, don't think it's necessary. I personally like the fast pace of a 2-minute round, as there are no lulls in the action. Very few quiet moments, and that's not saying it's not possible to deliver a knockout in a 2-minute round when you think about Senicia Estrada's knockout of Miranda Atkins and Maria Santizo, the more recent knockout of Ramla Ali at the hands of Alejandra Guzman. Just because it's a 2-minute round don't mean you can't deliver a knockout. Though if they did have more time, it would help. I've heard a number of fighters say, on more than one occasion, that they'd hurt their opponent in a round, and if they would have had a little bit more time, they would have been able to close the show. But because the rounds go by so fast, they're back on their stool before you know it, recuperating and recovering. That's the debate. As well as the efficacy of a 2-minute round for a woman athlete. What biological differences between men and women? Is it safe? Some feel it is, and some feel it isn't. My thoughts. Women's boxing has been on the rise. And I feel like the 2-minute round actually helps to make it a bit easier to sell, because what you usually get are all action fights, shootouts with very little lulls in the action. The fighters know they ain't got no time to dick around in there. That's good and bad, but as far as marketability, I feel like it helps to sell some fights, make them better, because you cut to the chase. Welcome additions to shows like Ebony Bridges versus Shannon Courtenay, Natasha Jonas versus Terry Harper. Those fast-paced, high-octane fights, and they're aesthetic. They're entertaining, and that's what grabs people, that you get to the point straight away. Again, that's not saying that you can't produce knockouts in a 2-minute round. Ebony Bridges, who I just mentioned, she knocked out Shannon O'Connell. So it can be done. It can happen. That's not saying that fighting for 10 2-minute rounds comes at the sacrifice of knockouts so much as if the fighters had a little bit more time, they'd have more knockouts. But what happens within a round, that it's fast-paced, that it's all action, I do feel like it helps to sell some of these fights, some of these fighters. Yesterday's fight with Sandy and Jessica, great fight, start to finish. Now the outcome, that's something else, but the aesthetic of the match was crowd-pleasing. People enjoyed it. They did. Not against the 2-minute round, I'm not against the 3-minute round, though they both do seem to have their virtues separately. I guess the question is, what's actually better for the marketability of the sport? It's already bigger now than it's ever been, and it is still growing, But what would be better to maintain that trend? A 2-minute round to where if it ain't broke, don't fix it, or adding on more time for more knockouts?
A 3-minute round.
Biggest advocate for 3-minute rounds, or at least one of them, is Amanda Serrano. So I feel like there's added pressure for Amanda to stop Danila Ramos on the premise that she will now have more time to do it, even though Danila has never been stopped.
Yeah, she's never been knocked out.
Would it send the right message to the powers that be if Amanda Serrano can close the show in knockout fashion?
And can she? Can she knock her out? I certainly think she can beat Danila, but can she stop her?
Danila is a tough old bird. She's been around the block. We'll get those answers and more later on, next month. Men's heavyweight news: on the heels of his highlight reel knockout over Joe Joyce in what was their rematch this weekend, Zhilei Zhang asked the crowd, "Do you want to see me shut Tyson Fury up? No more barriers. Let's do it!" 35-year-old Fury finalized the deal to fight Cameroon's Ngannou in his lucrative crossover event. Croatia's Filip Prgovic, the IBF's mandatory challenger, is next in line to fight for another of Usyk's championships.
The IBF.
He's the IBF's mandatory challenger, which has left Zhang in a position to pursue a Fury fight. Like Fury, who is co-promoted by Bob Arum's Top Rank Inc., the 40-year-old Zhang is represented by Warren's Queensberry Promotions. I was very close to making a deal with Tyson Fury. Until Joe Joyce activated his rematch clause, Zhang told Queensberry Promotions' Dev Sani before he left the venue Saturday night. Now, no more barriers. The road is clear. Let's do it.
I'm not optimistic.
Tyson Fury doesn't seem all that interested in boxing a southpaw that's much smaller than he is. So why would he be interested in boxing a bigger one for what would be less money? You're not going to convince me that a fight with Zhang would be bigger than a fight with Usyk.
Why? Because he beat Joe Joyce 2 times?
Usyk beat Anthony Joshua 2 times, who's a much bigger name in the UK than Joe Joyce. Don't forget.
The first fight was fought at the Copper Box, and the second one was fought at the Wembley Arena. Not Wembley, the Wembley Arena, which is the UK equivalent of the Hulu Theater.
There's a difference between playing the big room at Madison Square Garden and fighting in the Hulu Theater, the same way there's a difference between fighting at Wembley Stadium and fighting in the Wembley Arena.
There's a difference.
Beating Joe Joyce, even if it is in knockout fashion, beating Joe isn't bigger than beating Anthony. So if Tyson Fury wasn't too keen on fighting Usyk, who beat a big name in Anthony, I'm not sure how keen he's going to be to fight Zhang for beating Joe.
Think about it.
When asked how a Fury fight would unfold, Zhang simply stated that it would end similarly to his rematch with Joe Joyce, whom the 6'6", 287-pound Zhang viciously knocked out with a right hook towards the end of the third round. Same thing, Zhang replied.
Fiscally, it makes no sense. We know that Fury out of his own mouth said he's not interested in Usyk and he's not interested in Undisputed, that was never his priority. An Usyk fight gets you more money than a Zhang fight.
And he said in plain English he's not interested in Usyk, so why would he be interested in Zhang? Usyk is often described as a light punching, albeit very skillful southpaw. He doesn't have the size or the power of a Zhang. So if Fury's not too keen on fighting a small southpaw, why on earth would he fight a bigger one?
Did you see what Otto Verleen did to that guy's face?
You know, Otto, he's a southpaw with some size, like Zhilei Zhang is a southpaw with some size. But Otto is not known for concussive punching power or big knockouts, and look at what he did to Tyson Fury.
He sliced up Tyson Fury's face.
On that predication, I don't know how much luck Zhilei Zhang is going to have getting Tyson Fury in the ring. But Terry Lane, advisor to Zhang Zhilei, has confirmed to No Smoke Sport that Zhang has an existing multi-fight deal in place with Frank Warren and Queensberry. We have a couple more fights with them, and we're talking about extending into the future as well.
He's fucked.
I wasn't aware of this when I made my weekend recap video, that Zhilei Zhang might be staying on the Queensberry Promotions side of things for the foreseeable future. There's nobody over there for him to fight.
What the hell are they going to keep him busy with?
I want to say that I'm not against Zhang getting an opportunity against Tyson Fury. I'd love to see it, but given how Tyson Fury's been behaving, what he's been saying, and how he spent the last calendar year, how he spent the last 12 months or so, you're talking about a pointless trilogy with Derek Chisora, as if there were no one else out there he could have given a shot, and then a circus fight with with Francis Ngannou. Does this sound like the kind of guy who's gonna roll the dice with Zhang?
He's getting circus fight money. He's getting Netflix money. He said his goal now is to make the Forbes list. I don't think that Zhilei Zhang gets him there.
A fight with Zhang Zhilei, as good as it is, it's not actually bigger than an Usyk fight. And what Tyson Fury has effectively done is gaslight certain members of the boxing community into thinking that Usyk is small potatoes and he's a small fry, when, for me and my money, Usyk's got more fans in the sport of boxing than Francis Ngannou had in mixed martial arts. He was never that big a draw here.
He's fooled people into thinking there's no money in an Usyk fight.
Here and now, based on their drawing power and their overall notoriety in their respective sports, I don't actually know that Francis Ngannou has more drawing power than Usyk. I mean, how does that work? Usyk is well known in Poland, obviously in the Ukraine, and the United Kingdom, where he's boxed for many years now. One of the more robust boxing markets in the sport.
Beat some very big names there. As far as the UK goes, he beat Tony Bellew, Derek Chisora, Anthony Joshua.
More recently, he made Daniel Dubois quit in Poland, but Daniel Dubois is based out of the United Kingdom. So the Brits know all about that. That Alexander Usyk comparatively has more drawing power in the UK than Francis Ngannou has anywhere.
It's one big fucking psyop.
The way he's convinced people that fighting Ngannou in a circus fight is bigger than fighting Usyk.
This ain't Maymac, because Francis Ngannou was never to the UFC what Conor McGregor was, or even Ronda Rousey.
You ask yourself, well, if what you're saying is true, then why is he fighting a guy? And the reason he's fighting a guy is because some wealthy sheik with a lot of fucking money is willing to pay him buku dollars to play dancing bear against a guy that ain't never boxed before.
That's the appeal. Boxing a guy that ain't never boxed before.
For Tyson Fury it is. Why roll the dice and gamble your unblemished record with legitimate pugilists when some wealthy sheik is willing to pay you a boatload of cash? The boxer non-boxer. The box guys that never boxed before.
People forgot who Tyson Fury really is. He's the guy who, to me, faked an injury to get out of giving Klitschko his rematch.
I didn't believe the bit about his injured ankle or the bit about his mental health for that matter. All these things to get out of the Klitschko rematch that he perhaps felt he was going to lose.
They didn't believe him.
And if all of that is too open to interpretation to you out there, I don't believe Tyson Fury is as good as they say he is, because this is the guy who got sat on his back pocket by Nevin Pajcik, sat on his back pocket by a cruiserweight in Steve Cunningham, and how many times did Deontay Wilder knock him down?
Got his face all sliced up by Otto Wallin, and you expect me to believe that he's invincible? He's untouchable? He can be touched. He has been touched.
Been acting squirrely for months when it comes to Usyk, and you think he's gonna fight an even bigger, stronger, hard-punching southpaw? I don't buy it. And while I'm not against it, I don't buy it.
Oh, sure. Negotiating with Zhang might be easier than negotiating with Usyk because Zhang's not a champion.
Then again, when has Usyk ever been a hard guy to negotiate with? Outside of the fiasco with Tyson Fury, he makes his fights pretty easy. It's Fury who's always got issues.
Hard to imagine he would voluntarily defend the WBC title against Zhang.
It's not worth the same money as an Usyk fight, and you'd be facing a bigger, harder puncher.
Just being honest.
Not optimistic. I'm not optimistic we actually get Fury versus Zhilei Zhang. Eddie Hearn, like many others, reacted to Zhilei Zhang's big win, and he's welcomed the possibility of Anthony Joshua versus Zhilei Zhang in China following Zhang's KO of Joe Joyce. AJ's always fancied that fight. He beat him in the amateurs. Yeah, of course we'd do it in China. Money talks, as there are a good number of Chinese millionaires and billionaires who might be interested in bankrolling that fight.
You know, for all the talk of the potential boxing market in China, if they ever produced an emerging star...
China has yet to emerge as a robust and fertile boxing market. That's not saying there aren't other fertile boxing markets in the Far East, in Asia, but China's not one of them. Maybe it's because China so seldom ever produces world-class boxers, but Zhilei Zhang is making a splash.
A big one.
Though he's supposed to be tied down to Frank Warren and Queensberry Promotions. That's what's supposed to be the story. Thus, even if Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn are willing to entertain a Zhilei Zhang fight in China,
where Zhang would have home field advantage.
Anthony's fought on neutral territory more than once. The Ruiz fight in Saudi Arabia, the Usyk fight in Saudi Arabia, those two rematches. but he's never conceded home field advantage to anyone. Even if he were willing to do that, Zhang is reported to be tied to Queensberry. Thus, to make a fight, Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren would have to set aside their differences to do that fight. I'm not convinced that they can.
A fight with AJ would be bigger than any fight, virtually any fight, Frank could offer on the Queensberry side of things, short of a Fury fight. And I just told you, I'm not optimistic Fury fights him.
So what the hell is Frank Warren gonna do with a 6'6", 6'7", 287-pound Chinese heavyweight that don't speak no English?
Fury's always carrying on about how Usyk is just some foreigner that don't speak no English. You think he's gonna fight a Chinaman that don't speak no English?
It's unfortunate, but it's a byproduct of the business that in order to get that opportunity against Joe Joyce in the first place, Zhang likely had to concede to certain things, and Frank Warren having options on him is one of them. Now, initially, I thought that he'd be scot-free after the Joe Joyce rematch. Apparently not.
What the hell's Frank Warren gonna do with a 6'7" Chinese heavyweight?
Well, at minimum, it would give Queensberry Promotions the leverage to promote Zhang versus Usyk, because Zhang is Usyk's mandatory challenger by way of the WBO, even if he's not next in the rotation.
Does he want to promote that fight? A fight between a Ukrainian and a Chinaman in London.
He lost the purse bid for the Usyk versus Dubois fight. He got beat out by K2 Promotions.
Wasn't all that invested in that fight. You think he's going to be invested in this one?
He's been rubbing elbows with the powers that be over there in Saudi Arabia, both him and Bob Arum. I don't know. Maybe they can pull some strings and have those wealthy sheiks foot the bill for this fight, because I don't imagine Frank wants to be on the hook to pay a hefty purse to Usyk and a hefty purse to Zhang.
We're not there yet anyway. The next guy in the rotation is Filip Pergovic of Matchroom and Vazerman.
Unless something changes and they make the fight between Fury and Usyk, Usyk's on the hook to satisfy another mandatory challenger. He just satisfied the WBA's mandatory challenger in Daniel Dubois. Next is Hrgovic by way of the IBF. The only way to circumvent that is with the undisputed title fight.
If that don't happen, maybe his next fight is on DAZN and Matchroom.
Filip Hrgovic wants his shot. He wants his opportunity. I remember Alexander Krasiuk, who promotes Alexander Usyk. I remember him saying he loves working with Matchroom. Well, he might work with them again, at least on that fight.
Things don't work out with Fury, they go into negotiations for Hrgovic.
And Fury can keep playing Dancing Bear in Saudi Arabia and see who cares.
Film more Netflix specials.
And it just is what it is.